Hi guys, happy Wine Wednesday. Hope your
Hey
weeks are
y'all.
going great so far.
Absolutely. I'm so excited that Michelle and I are going to be chatting with you guys today about one of my favorite topics, which is limiting beliefs on money. But before we hop into that, let's discuss the wine, as is our tradition here on Women, Wealth, and Probably Wine. This week we are going to Italy, you guys. It's a sleeper place for me. This is the wine that we're using. If you guys had the opportunity to pick it up, I know we posted about it on Monday. But this is coming from a region in Italy called Piedmont. And it is a region that is typically pretty famous for a red varietal called Nebbiolo, which is a big, bold red in a lot of cases. It's big depending on your palate. To me, it's big and bold because I like lighter bodied reds. But they're actually doing a blend here, and this is going to be a Frizzante. So really similar to the Sicilian wine that we covered several weeks ago. It has a little bit of effervescence, so it's a little bubbly. If you guys like champagne but don't want to commit to the full bubble, this is a really good one for you guys. Again, a really good summer wine. It's going to be really crisp, really good on a hot day. The blend is 50% Favorita, 35% Arnaz, 10% Chardonnay, and 5% Moscato. Do not be fooled. It is not sweet, but it is very, very delightful and refreshing. And one of my favorite varietals to drink during the summer when it is hotter than hell, as it is right now.
I heard Austin is pretty hot.
It is definitely getting there. And it's one of those like tired subjects at this point, but I just can't stop talking about it because I'm tired of it.
Well,
Anyways,
I'm really learning so much every week from your wine talks.
thank you.
So thank you.
Someone has to, because gosh dang, it's an expensive habit, but it's a really fun one. Okay, Michelle, let's get into our rose and thorn. Let's start with you. What was your rose?
Okay, yes. Let's start with my thorn. Get the bad out of the way first. But I guess so opposite of Austin in New York this week, it has been very rainy and do not like when it rains because I tend to just sit inside and I like to get out, go on my walks, go to the pool and things like that. So I've been stuck inside mostly.
Oh, boo.
But yes, boo. Boo, boo, boo. But my rose for the week, as you can see, I have a different background today. So I'm actually in Maryland staying with my family. We actually went to the Shania Twain concert last night. So if you tuned into last week's episode, you heard that they lost my package with my outfit in it. So I had an Amazon outfit. It came overnight. So we were prepared, but it was an amazing concert and she just looks so good for her age and it was great. Like I said, I grew up listening to her, my cousin and I. So it was really fun to have that experience with her. We were just like blasting out the songs all night. It was such a fun concert.
You're really talking me into going because she's coming to ACL. So I'm like,
you
gotta
have to go
now.
Yes,
Okay.
you have to, because I think this is probably like her last, or if not last, one of the last, and I would really recommend go see her. She was awesome.
Okay, fine.
Really
You convinced me.
Yeah. What about you, Jenny? What are your rose and thorn of the week?
I will also start with my thorn, which is a bit educational for you guys in case you were curious. So when you purchase a house, you have to pay what's called purchase mortgage interest, and PMI is what I'm sure you've heard it referred to. But once you've attained 20% equity in your home, you're able to request getting it removed, which can be a pretty substantial savings. And we purchased our first home in Houston a couple years ago, and the area has really developed and grown. So we ran the comps on it, or I should say my husband ran the comps on it, and he's a real estate agent. And we discovered that we should no longer be paying PMI. And we've just been working with the mortgage company to get it removed. And the process has been extremely arduous, and they will do anything to make sure that you're not getting it removed. So that was definitely the thorn of last week.
Oh, no.
Hopefully I'll have an update for you guys with some good news.
Hopefully that'll be your rose for next week.
I know, right? Like, please, let's make it happen. Process is so long.
Good thoughts for you.
Right?
This week.
And my rose for last week, I've actually got two, both of them surrounding family. My mom's a huge Mets fan. I think I talked about that before. My whole family, the rest of us are Astros fan. So we got to go to the game last week. And it was really fun. I chose one, just saying, lots of fun. It was dollar hot dog night. And then we did, went to one of my favorite restaurants in Houston, and it was just a magical experience. And then we also went out on the boat on Sunday, which is the only thing you can do in this weather. And my parents had a blast. So that was really fun. Overall, a pretty good week. If all I'm complaining about is a little bit of paperwork.
That sounds like so much fun. I didn't know your mom was a Met fan. It's awesome.
Oh, huge Mets fan.
Yeah.
She's kind of nuts.
Okay. That's funny. Okay, so let's see. What is on the docket next? Let's give our quote of the week.
Quote queen.
Which, quote queen, yes. This has actually become like one of my favorite parts of the week is to look at quotes for us. So actually, while I was doing research for our episode, I actually came across this quote and I loved it. So the quote was, whatever you do is better than doing nothing, no matter how small. So small is better than zero, nothing. So even if you don't think that you're taking, large steps, always start, even a tiny little step is better than not doing anything at all. So I really loved it. And I think it's really, tying into today's episode, which Jenny will introduce for us in a minute here. But yeah, so that was our quote of the week for this week.
Absolutely. So as I indicated before, we're going to be talking about limiting beliefs surrounding money today. And then not only are we going to talk about what those beliefs are and how they present, but also we're going to give you guys some tactical tips on how to overcome them. And we're going to discuss some of our limiting beliefs and some of the ones that we have found to be pretty common. And then some of the things that we've learned from it or wish that we knew, at least initially. So without further ado, we're going to kind of dive into the question, which is, how do you know if you have limiting beliefs about money? Maybe you have an overall sense or a feeling, but you want to be able to pin down and say, do I have these? And what does that look like, right? So here are a few signs that you have limiting beliefs about money. 1, you avoid talking about money. Duh. 2, you feel anxious or stressed about money. 3, you have a hard time setting financial goals. And then Michelle's going to talk to you about some of the other ones.
Yes. So number 4 is you make impulsive financial decisions. Don't really think them through. You just want to make your decision, just go with it. And number 5 is you always seem to be broke and you just feel like, you're constantly living that paycheck to paycheck life.
Absolutely. And then some of the limiting beliefs that Michelle and I are going to kind of talk to you guys about. Michelle, talk to us a little bit about kind of the feeling that you have if you want to be successful from a financial standpoint, but you're not able to really focus on that.
Right. Exactly. So, some people, tend to think that if I want to be rich and wealthy, that is all that I can focus on. I can't focus on anything else, whether that be, my family, social life. I just have to focus on building my wealth. And that is the only way that I'm going to get there. And, a lot of the times what happens is that the other areas of your life, whether that's your mental health, your family life, your social life, they will really suffer. And because really the only thing that you're focusing on and caring about is money. And if you think about it though, most wealthy individuals, once they hit that level of wealth, they have a lot of flexibility and freedom to do the things that they care about and what makes them happy. A lot of the time that is, hanging out with their families, going out with their friends, and they're really not so focused on, becoming wealthy or being wealthy. So I think that's really, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I totally agree with you. And piggybacking off of that, I feel like so many times in our history, the definition of wealth, if you will, has changed so much, right? Yes. Wealth can mean so many different things to you. Maybe it does mean freedom of time. And you're not so consumed with the number or the amount of money that you're making. Maybe you don't care as much about quality time and you want to continue to amass financial success. So that can look different for everyone. And I think that kind of ties perfectly into another limiting belief is that oh my God, in order to accomplish X, I need to accomplish this other thing first. There has to be this perfect time frame in which I'm going to be successful. And it's kind of similar. It's one of those condescending things that people say about, people who want to have kids, where they're like, oh, when you have a kid, you just figure it out. Not to recycle that. It's kind of the same thing when it comes to doing something that's going to amass success or wealth for you. There is no such thing as the perfect time. Right?
Exactly.
If you continue to perpetuate that limiting belief, you're going to stay stagnant and you're not going to be able to build, right? You're not going to be able to take those baby steps that Michelle was talking about at the outset of the episode. Keeping in mind that you always need to start somewhere. If you're sitting still and doing nothing at this juncture, whatever your strategy is to begin to amass wealth, you're losing, right? Like, we're in a world where interest rates are redonkulous. Inflation is eating away at whatever money you may have been able to amass. And anytime that you're losing in terms of not putting your money to work for you is a game that you're losing, right? So you have to think about these baby steps, and you have to think about your ability to put forth some sort of a plan and start action at some point. You can't be in this self-perpetuating cycle of inaction.
Right, exactly. And one example that I hear it time and time again, a lot of people is, oh, I don't want to invest right now. I'm going to wait until the economy is better. Wait until, I get enough money to start. But I always like to tell my clients, it's really not, timing the market. It's really your time in the market, especially if you have that longer time horizon. Investing is, I like to say, like an emotional roller coaster. There's going to be highs and lows. That's, you want to kind of take the ride, so to speak. And if you're invested long enough, even though you will have some losses, mostly all the time you will make up for it with the gains if you're just in there for the long haul.
Yeah, it's a marathon, not a sprint, right? So you have to think about it from that perspective. You can't be that kind of person who is just obsessing over success and how linear it is and things amassing overnight, because it doesn't work that way, right?
Right. Yeah. No, exactly. Definitely. Okay. So our next limiting belief that we thought was important to share is that fear of success and self-destruction. And, I know self-destruction could come in numerous ways, whether that's in our relationships, with work, and, like I said, fear of success. And I think sometimes too, we fear, becoming that successful. So we'll start trying to sabotage our way to get there.
Yep. I mean, that's happened. It's so funny. For maybe some of you can't relate to what fear of success means. And is that really a concept? I know when I first was introduced to it, I thought, what do you mean fear of success? All I want is success. But with success, the more success you amass, the more responsibility you amass. And sometimes it can feel overwhelming. And sometimes it can feel scary to be vulnerable, in the sense of you're putting everything on the line to achieve this goal. And it's easier sometimes to just not go for it. Right. So this is something that has been very, very real as I've continued to, build upon any success that I've had in my career, in my life. It's this little creeping thought that creeps in, and you just have to learn how to quiet it. It's a voice in your head that you have to learn how to speak to, so that it's not resounding in your brain and it doesn't become a limiting belief.
Mm-hmm.
And then another thing that kind of like builds off of that is lack of experience, right? This ties into the timing that we were talking about before. Sometimes we tell ourselves these lies that we don't have enough experience to pursue what it is that we want to pursue. And I'm going to tell you that 99% of successful people who are out there pursuing something felt the same way when they started that pursuit. And no, you're never, ever, ever going to get to 100% threshold of where you want to be before you start something, because if you did, you would never start. So that's a limiting belief that took me along. I mean, I had, back in my mid-20s, I wanted to become an entrepreneur, but I didn't know anybody in my immediate circle that was a successful entrepreneur. And I thought that it was insurmountable and that I had not enough experience and that I was too young. And in retrospect, when I think about it, when I started my business, in my 30s, I still didn't have the requisite experience to be an entrepreneur, right? I was still starting from zero at that juncture.
Right.
So all that time that I was telling myself those lies and those limiting beliefs is time lost. And, don't beat yourself up about that, because it's all a part of the journey. But at the end of the day, you're never going to have the requisite experience to begin any endeavor that you want when you get started. So you just have to go for it sometimes.
Exactly. Yes. And, I've experienced that too. I didn't think that I had enough experience. And I really feel that if you believe that, then that is going to lead you to not be as confident. And that's where, other people are going to see that. And you really just have to, own what you do. You may not have the most experience, but say if it, for instance, it's with work in your career, someone must have hired you for that position, or you started that business. So they really believed in you. You believed in yourself. And a lot of the times you just have to go through and take that lead. I definitely did when I started out in this industry. Now it's like a little over 5 years, but I didn't have that much experience. And I was like, oh, no, what am I going to do? And then you self-doubt yourself. But over time, you learn things through experience, teaching yourself, taking courses, getting certifications, and, it really holds you back if you just wait and wait and wait.
Agreed. Like, honestly, there are so many things that could be good. If we think about, if you could eradicate all of your limiting beliefs, how much could you accomplish? And that's a really, really good segue into the tactical tips that Michelle and I have tried to put into practice over the years, and that we would suggest for you all to take those barriers that are in your way and move them, right? And it is a lifelong practice. You have to be intentional about it. But I think first and foremost, what's been most helpful for me is finding evidence to contradict your beliefs, right? So I talked a little bit about how I didn't have a model to follow when I wanted to become an entrepreneur. Well, we live in the information age. There are so many examples of people that can emulate the success that you want. There are so many people that are younger than you, that are less well off than you, that are more well off than you, that are older than you. There's every example under the sun that you can find if you look hard enough. And identifying your limiting beliefs, right? Once you have identified what they are, and I think the best exercise to do that is to literally write them down. Sit down and think about what gets in your way about money. Is money something that you always think about? What are those thoughts about money? And write down the thoughts, right? If you don't identify what you're dealing with, you don't know how to deal with it. So once you've identified them, you can start looking for that evidence that I talked about before. And not only can that include stories of people who have overcome financial challenges, it can include statistics, which you should use sparingly because sometimes they're more discouraging and they won't apply. But your mindset is literally the only thing that you can control. You can't control the economy. You can't control what other people think about you. All you can control is the concerted effort that you take daily to put good thoughts into your brain, and then make sure that you're executing on them. So that leads right into one of my favorite exercises that I've had to work on so much over the years, which is reframing your beliefs, right? Once you have found the evidence that contradicts that limiting belief, maybe it's, I don't see the value in what I'm charging people. Once you find evidence to contradict that and rewire your brain to not believe that anymore, it changes the way that you think about money, right? So, for example, if you believe that you're not good with money and there's nothing that you can do to fix that, you have to be able to reframe that by saying, okay, well, maybe I can't do something, but what can someone else teach me so that I can be better about money? And then I can be empowered to make positive decisions surrounding money, right? One thing that I think is so interesting is there's a huge difference between beliefs and thoughts. And a lot of times people don't really delineate that in your brain, but a thought is literally, think about it as like a teleprompter, right? A thought is literally a sentence that is scrolling across your brain. It takes very little effort to have a thought. We have thousands of thoughts a day, right? Limiting beliefs or belief systems are a compilation of thoughts, which are literally sentences that have been accumulating over a period of time for years and years in creating bad programming. If you think about your negative self-talk and your negative perception and your limiting beliefs as a thought instead of a belief, it's much easier to tackle because it's very easy to dismiss a thought versus dismissing a whole belief system. Once you understand what that narrative is in your brain, it's much less intimidating. At least it is for me. And you can do whatever you need to flip that script, to flip that narrative, and to create a belief system based on the thoughts that you're having about money and the reprogramming that you're doing in your brain to have a better outlook, right? And if this sounds woo-woo to you, let me tell you, I have put this into practice, you guys. Like, your thoughts are literal roadblocks if you have negative self-talk about these types of things.
Yeah. No, they really are.
They manifest, right? I know you've probably experienced this, Michelle. Like, when you're talking to a client, if you have that thought racing through your brain, that comes off to them. People can perceive that.
Yeah. No, they really can. Kind of like Jenny said, this is also a daily practice. It's not something that's going to like stick like that. But I actually read, I think it was either a book or a short story about actually like reframing your thoughts in your brain. And that's when your subconscious kicks in. But you literally have to do it for weeks or months at a time. Just keep thinking those positive thoughts. And even, sometimes a negative thought might get in there, but just try your best to kind of block those out. And I did a lot of this work. I think I remember telling you guys that, a few years ago, I think I had very like poor mindset, very negative, kind of in like that victim mentality, not thinking I was good enough. And I literally read this book and retrained my thoughts to get myself becoming more confident and being positive and having that positive mindset. And let me tell you, it was a total shift of, the person I was.
What was the book? Was it the Emotional Intelligence one?
It was, yeah. It was the Emotional Intelligence book that I was talking about, I think 2 podcasts ago. And that was the one that it helped me so much.
And we can link that podcast talking about some of our books for you. But another thing another thing to piggyback off of Michelle, another resource is there's a book called What to Say When You Talk to Yourself. And a lot of reprogramming for me came from that. So it's just being mindful of the content that you're imbibing, because that ultimately will get regurgitated when you're having interactions with people, whether it's work or family.
Yep, definitely. I just want to go over one more limiting belief, before we get into some more tactical tips on how to overcome those beliefs. And this one actually stuck out to me a lot. Actually, I learned something when Jenny and I were preparing and going over some limiting beliefs. But, what really does financial success look like for you? And that's okay if it changes over time. A lot of times now you'll hear people saying, and myself, I did this, when I was a young girl, I thought, oh, by 30, I'll be married, have a family, be a millionaire. And it's okay that, it didn't work out in that trajectory. And it's really, just living the vision that you want to live. And just because you had that plan when you were younger doesn't mean that you had to stick to that plan. It doesn't mean that, your life is bad, that you didn't do things in a timely manner. I think that's really, one of the biggest limiting beliefs that many people struggle with there.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, there's been times in my life where all I cared about was spending time with my family and work was on the back burner. And there's been times when I'm like, I'm really committed to pursuing this specific revenue goal, and I am putting things on the back burner that can wait till later. So it's okay if sometimes you want to be in a zone where you are prioritizing family and, lifestyle. And then on other seasons, you want to really grind it out for a little while to reach a goal. There's no requirement that this looks like an upward trajectory on both ends at all times.
Right. And actually, I'll share. So actually, something that Jenny said really stuck with me, and she kind of got me thinking. So we were talking about this and, talking about like letting down our younger self. She made a good point where our younger selves didn't know how the world was going to turn out or the risks that would, resurface. Say our younger selves didn't know that there was going to be economic crash in 2008 or other, what about COVID? We didn't know that back then. So I don't think I've ever thought of it that way. And then when she said that, it really clicked. I was like, you know what? That makes absolute perfect sense.
100%. Our circumstances are something that happened to us and we can't control.
Exactly.
The only thing you can control is your mindset surrounding them. And this is where affirmations come in, right? You have to tell yourself, I'm going to win regardless.
Right.
Because if you don't have that mentality about yourself, then who's going to have it for you?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So now we will get into some of our tactical tips on how to overcome these limiting beliefs. And Jenny, mentioned the first two about finding evidence to contradict those beliefs and then reframing your beliefs. So the next one that we thought was important was to seek advice to support those new beliefs that you had now. You just reframe them, introduce them into your mind. So you want to look for examples or stories of other individuals that have achieved financial success despite the circumstances that they faced.
Yep.
And you also want to surround yourself with positive influences and individuals. I know I shared one of my quotes, I think, was, you're the average of the 5 people that you spend your most time with. And you always want to be mindful of who you're spending your time with. You don't really want to spend time with people that also have negative mindsets, because that's going to rub off on you. If you're constantly hearing negative self-talk, those thoughts are going to get back into your head and just kind of erase all the work that you just worked so hard for.
Yeah, that perpetuates. And I know that what Michelle just said may seem like a cliche, but it is a cliche for a reason. This is something that takes concerted effort, you guys. So I know that there are friends that we've had forever and family members who will sometimes be leeches in the sense of mindset leeches, right? They're negative all the time. They're bringing you down all the time. You have to take active steps to combat this and to limit your time with these types of people, because it bleeds over into every phase of your life.
Yeah, definitely. And then the next tip that we have actually kind of goes hand in hand, I guess, with the seeking evidence, but it's to educate yourself. So now once you overcame those beliefs, reframing your mindset, you want to continue to do that and build the confidence that you need to have. And, a few ways to do this. You could take workshop classes, read different books, especially say within money. If one of your concepts, I know we talked about budgeting last week, but if you want to really, work on your budgeting, get books about budgeting, take some free workshops at the local library to learn more. And you can listen to podcasts, take courses that provide those insights into either personal finance, investing, or creating the wealth.
Yep. And my advice to you guys is to do one of these things at a time, right? You don't want to take on too much, but if you know that you really struggle with what is investing and what does that look like for me, find somebody who you trust in the space. And there's so much free content. Take advantage of their content. Maybe you have somebody that's even closer to you that you can take out for coffee and have them educate you. That's something that I did a lot early on, was, networking to find individuals who knew things that I didn't, right? And building a network. I mean, we've talked about that before. It's imperative, right? So one thing at a time. We can do anything, but we can't do everything. And just show yourself some grace as you kind of take this journey to eradicate and dismantle these limiting beliefs one by one. And that kind of really piggybacks into our 5th tactical step, which is to take action, right? So this means that you have to do things actively to overcome these limiting beliefs about money, right? So like we've mentioned multiple times throughout, seeking somebody out who knows something that you don't know. Even if you feel like you don't have disposable income to start making your money work for you, trust me, you can start with a lot less than you think you could have. I promise you that. It might be uncomfortable to have a conversation about where you are and where you want to be and how large that gap is, but doing nothing is more risky. You have to understand what the effects of these beliefs will have ultimately on your finances and your financial picture. Michelle and I talked extensively about, and again, trigger alert, this is a little bit of a cliche, but I think it's one for a reason. women specifically, as women, no matter how successful we are and how ambitious we are, we value security. Okay.
Yeah.
We were told a lie and a narrative from a very young age that investing and taking risks it was going to end badly for us. And it frankly was not a secure choice, right? In order for us to break that cycle, we have to educate ourselves a lot. And we have to learn from not only ourselves, but from each other. And we have to do everything within our power to break ourselves from the scarcity mindset, right?
Yeah.
I know Michelle and I have talked about this before, but me personally, I used to have such a scarcity mindset surrounding money. I was taught, don't spend your money, save your money, every dollar counts. And honestly, it took me years to be able to enjoy any fruits of my labor because I was so scared to do so.
Right.
And at the end of the day, money is an infinite resource. There's always going to be more that's available. Think about everybody in the world who made something from nothing and everybody who's out there succeeding. There really is enough success for everybody. And I want you guys to repeat that to yourselves every day if this is something that you're struggling with. This is something that I've seen presented in my friend circle so much. I have so many friends that say, you know, I'm really miserable in my job and I make X and I just don't ever really see myself overcoming that mountain. And the fact of the matter is, like, that's what's circumventing them from overcoming that mountain. And there are so many things that you can do actively to contribute towards shifting your mindset away from scarcity. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't value security. I know that I still do. But I also know that there is so much out there for me to grab in terms of success and continuing to level up.
And I loved your Instagram post today. If you follow Jenny's Instagram page, Business Strategy by Jenny, she was actually talking about how, you know, one of her personal financial decisions might have not been something that other people would have done, but she's so glad she did it because it just brought her, you know, so much fun and relaxing. If you want to, you know, go into that a little bit more.
Yeah, I absolutely will. You guys should follow me on Instagram if you don't. It's Business Strategy by Jenny. I posted today, as Michelle mentioned, my husband and I last year decided to purchase a boat. And I can already hear everybody saying, boats are the worst investment ever and you have to fix them all the time. And while that may be true, and while, you know, I just want to make sure that I am getting across to you guys that I did not purchase this boat because it was a smart financial decision. I purchased it because every single time I've used it over the past year has brought me immense joy. And I've been able to spark it immediately in that moment. And I move other things around in my life because it's important for me to have those experiences. And so often people will tell you not to buy things that are not conventionally good investments at the expense of what could have been very happiness inducing for that person. And I disagree with that. I really think that we should prioritize that at all times, not at the expense of the rest of your life and all other smart decisions that you should be making. You have to be very astute about making decisions like that. And my husband and I we moved a lot of things around to make it happen, but I don't regret it. And I don't need anyone telling me that it wasn't a good financial investment because I know that. It was something that we wanted to do. And it's something that I don't regret. And not every single purchase that you make has to make financial sense if you have the disposable income to justify it.
Definitely. Love that. I even realized that your post tied in perfectly.
I know, right?
Today.
Must have had money beliefs on the mind.
Exactly. You even do that on purpose. Okay, our next tactical tip that we have for you guys is to take small steps. So this is where the quote of the week comes into play here. And, you know, start taking action towards, you know, your financial goals, no matter how small the step. Like Jenny was saying, it doesn't really say if you want to start investing, it really doesn't take that much to start doing it. If you want to start budgeting, like we were talking about in last week's episode, you know, it takes time. Just take that initial step, you know, also to tie in what we said before, but there really is no perfect moment to do anything. And if you keep pushing that time back, it's not going to get done. or another, year or two will have gone by. And each step forward, I think, really helps you build the confidence and also reinforces those positive money beliefs. And once you start it, I think you'll see the success you're having and you'll want to go further and just keep going. So, start small, at least start and, do something.
That's all you can do, right?
Exactly.
And then I won't spend a ton of time on the next tactical tip because we've talked about it sporadically throughout because all of these concepts are so tied together. But it's just monitoring and challenging in the moment your negative self-talk. Okay. So this requires a level of awareness where you have to pay attention to your inner dialogue and challenge those things in the moment when you're talking about money. Like if you catch yourself saying things like even to your friends, like I'm so broke, you have to eradicate that kind of talk, right?
Yeah.
Because although it seems harmless, that's manifesting in your conversations with your clients, in whatever large reach goals that you're putting down on paper. If you're telling yourself, I can't do this, I'm so broke, and then you're asking for massive, massive results in a given quarter when you're setting goals, which Michelle and I will do a podcast about setting goals as well, because it's a very concerted effort. You have to stop that in its tracks. You cannot let that kind of thing continue. You have to be intentional about it. And then one thing that has been massive for me is writing down my goals, my aspirations, and being extremely, extremely specific. Mitch and I, my husband, laugh about this all the time because I have a dream board, like where I cut out things from magazines and I put them on the dream board. And I put down, this was like, 2018, 2019 when I did this. And a lot of the things on that dream board came true.
They come true.
In one way or another. Okay. Like I wanted a red Jeep Wrangler. I bought one because I was able to. I wanted, there was like a ton of things on there. I wanted to achieve a certain level of income, which I achieved. I wanted to purchase a bag that I've always wanted, which I achieved. And then I wanted rental properties, which I achieved. And then there were things on there like, this is like the best example. There are a couple examples, but in the interest of time, I'll just tell you about one. I want to own a wine bar one day because I love wine and I'm obsessed with it. So on my dream board, I put a picture of a wine bar where like folks were sitting at the bar and there was a ladder that was like up to the wine wall. And y'all, that's not specific enough because guess what? I started working at a wine bar that looked exactly like that, but I did not own a wine bar because I wasn't specific enough. So just keep that in mind when you're putting this together. It really works. Like my husband was super skeptical, but he saw all those things come true.
Do you do one annually? Like do you sit down in January and make a new one? Or do you revise it? I think that would be an awesome episode one week is we should go over making our dream boards in January. I think that would be really fun.
God. We should. Yes. Everybody can grab their wine and their glue guns and the whole nine. I love it.
Okay. A few more tips for you guys before we're done today, but I think this one is very important, but always practice gratitude. So Eric, who our boss actually sent us these best self journals for journaling, and it's a 90-day focused journaling method. And let me say, it has actually become one of the best routines that I have placed into my practice, and it has helped me so much. I could really tell the difference, when I start my day with thinking about gratitude, writing down things that I'm thankful for. I have a different mindset, throughout the day. And then coming back at night and going over it again and say, this is why my day went well, what went well. And then also to write down 3 more things that I was grateful for that happened to me that day. And I like to say, you want to cultivate that attitude of gratitude for the money you have now and the opportunities available to you. Think about how far you've come and all of those opportunities that have taken place, whether, that be with getting a new job, maybe making more money, you started your budget binder or you started investing. But, really, even if you don't write it down, just before you go to bed, just take some time to really thinking about, what you're grateful for and practice that gratitude.
Absolutely. I mean, whatever you can accomplish, at least in the beginning, whenever you're creating these new habits, is great. But if you can write it down, it's so much more powerful, right?
Yeah.
Because you're bringing that thought to life. And this is something that I'm obsessed with, gratitude journals. And you don't have to put large sweeping things in there. Sometimes I put, this cup of coffee is freaking amazing. Like, it's just like little stuff like that, right? So, I mean, and honestly, that really pairs really well with our last tactical step, which is celebrate your successes. Y'all, this does not have to be, I want to be a millionaire and I didn't accomplish it. Your success can be anything, big or small. Maybe you told yourself that you were going to do the dishes every night before you went to bed so you could wake up to a clean kitchen. If you did that for a whole week, you need to celebrate that success. There are so many things that you can do in this category. And literally, life is about sparking as much joy as you possibly can and making the very, very small things or seemingly small things really celebratory. I do this all the time. It drives my husband nuts because I'll celebrate like the littlest baby thing all the time. But it makes you get a kick out of yourself, and it makes you really happy, because if you're not taking a concerted effort to look at your progress, no matter how big or small, those limiting money beliefs are going to creep in, right? So you have to do whatever you can to recognize that progress on a consistent basis. It's been massive for me.
Oh yeah, definitely, celebrate your wins or successes. Like Jenny said, no matter how small, whether if you're on your personal financial journey, just celebrate even, writing down, say, your expenses, or, being proud. Maybe you didn't spend money on like a lavish pair of shoes when you really didn't have that in your budget. So really just, start small, celebrate every win or success. And I think these tips will really help, kind of get over those limiting beliefs that we have or we can have.
Agreed. Thank you guys so much for chatting with us today. It's been so fun. We'll be with you guys next week. We're going to be talking about the research and development tax credit and then other tax strategies for business owners that significantly decrease their tax liability that many people don't know about. So we are very excited to chat with you guys about that. And we hope you have a great rest of your week.
Yes. Have a great rest of your week and enjoy the rest of your Wine Wednesday. We'll see you guys next week. Bye.